Okay, now constituency test and ambiguity. We are going to introduce a formal test to decide what goes together, what is inside a constituent. So, for example, if we want to figure out the constituency, the structure inside this sentence, many professors eat at a really fancy restaurant. We have several tests, several experiments that we can use to decide the inside structure. So if something is able to stand alone, then it means that it is a constituent. So, for example, we are trying to decide whether to show this VP is a constituent. So we can say, what do many professors do? Then you answer this: eat at a really fancy restaurant. So this string, this can stand alone, so it must be a single constituent. And in this case, it's a VP, right? So this is the first test. Another test is substitution. If something can be substituted by a pronominal pronoun form, then the whole thing would be a constituent. So, for example, we can replace many professors with they, right? So many professors would be a constituent, and this would be an MP, right? And also, at the really fancy restaurant, we can replace this with there. So layer is replacing at a really fancy restaurant. So we can say they eat there, meaning many professors eat at a really fancy restaurant. So layer shows that at the really fancy restaurant is another constituent. In this case, this is a PP, right? And another test that we can use is to move elements. If something can be moved together, then it means that they are a constituent. So we can move the whole PP to the front of the sentence, right? At a really fancy restaurant, many professors eat, right? We can try just move fancy restaurant, and then we have a unacceptable sentence, right? If we try to move fancy restaurant to the beginning of the sentence, then we have a unacceptable sentence. Then it means that fancy restaurant is not a constituent. Okay. Okay, the structure for the sentence would be like this. So we have MP, we have VP, and we have PP. Okay. Now I want to talk about ambiguity. So ambiguity means that a single sentence with multiple interpretations. And there are several types of ambiguity. Lexical ambiguity is one of the most common one. This is easy just simply because of a word with multiple meanings. So, for example, here we have John went to the bank this morning. This sentence can have two meanings, right? It can have because of the meaning of bank. Bank can mean a river bank or a financial institute. So this will have two meanings. This is not that interesting. What is really interesting is this one, structural ambiguity, which means that a single sentence can have different structures. So we have different interpretations. For example, we have this sentence here. The lady saw a person with a telescope. We can take a look at this sentence. So the first interpretation would be this. The lady saw the person who is carrying a telescope, right? So here with a telescope is modifying a person, right? So in other words, a person with a telescope would be a single constituent with this interpretation. Let's see whether this is the case. So it means that if it is a single constituent, then we can use the constituency test. So we can use the replacement. Okay, the lady is a constituent. We can use she to replace that. And what's critical here is the person carrying a person with a telescope. We are trying to show that the whole string, a person with a telescope, is a single constituent. Then we can use him to replace the person, a person with a telescope, right? So here, the lady saw the person with a telescope. We can use him to represent the whole string here. And this also shows that with a telescope must be adjacent to a person because it's modifying a person. So if we move with a telescope away from a person, then we have a unacceptable string. Okay. On the other hand, we have another interpretation, which means that by using a telescope, the lady saw the person. Right? Here, with a telescope, it's modifying the verb saw. Okay, so it means that a person with a telescope is not a constituent with this interpretation, right? So if we group a person with a telescope together, then we will have unacceptable sentences. And this is the case. For example, if we use him to replace the person with a telescope, then this is not true. The lady saw him. We cannot get this interpretation. By using a telescope, the lady saw the person, right? And we can use the one to replace the whole string as well. And with telescope, it's not a constituent with the person, so we can move the preposition phrase away. With the telescope, the lady saw the person. So under this interpretation, this movement is possible. So the structure will be like this. With the telescope, it's not a constituent with the person. On the other hand, with the telescope, this PP is modifying saw. Okay.